As I was saying, the workshop was consistent of seven Saturdays, 7 weeks, and I'm so heartfelt that the women came out and supported me, and they took time out of their Saturdays and came out to get fed and with lots of knowledge and to be empowered, and I greatly appreciate it. I just want to give you a little bit of overview about me as a person and where I come from, who I am, and what inspired me to develop my business Elegance Plan, and why I'm in partnership with the Bessie Mae Women's Health Center. As a native of Newark, I always was inspired to socially work with others, especially with disadvantaged backgrounds. After experiencing the tragic loss of my mother at age 3, both me and my younger sister were raised by my grandmother. And due to the pain and suffering that my father experienced with drug and alcohol abuse, and he was also an abuser himself, he couldn't deal with the frustration. Due to the frustration, he couldn't raise us, so my grandmother took us and raised us. So I'm giving you just a little bit overview of my background to let you know that whatever you do in life, no matter what tragic things happen in your life, whatever obstacles you have to overcome, that you are somebody and you can do anything that you want in life. Never use an excuse, well, my mother didn't do this for me, or my father didn't do this for me, or anything like that. You should use those things that happen in your life to build a more solid foundation and use it in a positive way. You know, don't use it in a negative way for it to tie you into the streets, etc. Center yourself around people of positive influence, great energy, great spiritual influence, and you'll see yourself in an abundance, an overflow of joy and success in your life. So never give up, never give up. And so I say that to say I went on to as my grandmother raised us, I went on to go to college, and I moved back here. I'm a native of Newark, New Jersey, but I went to high school in South Carolina and college in South Carolina, and I went on to come back on to New Jersey and begin my career here. So by working with a dynamic individual, Mayor Wayne Smith, who has been a mentor in my life and a positive influence to others, I've been, it's just like overwhelming to let you know how many people I've been around who have nonprofits. I've got Dior, the Project Build, and she's worked with us in Irvington. I've got Cynthia Strickland with Determined to Achieve. I got Miss Betty Wade. She works with the Girl Scouts, and Charlene Messer, she's with Determined to Achieve, and they've inspired me all over. Overall, have a pleasure to work with them, and I'd just like to let you know that I appreciate your presence and that you're here today. And we're going to get on with the program and welcoming Marie Wright, and she's one of our presenters. And Marie, you can come and have a seat up at the dais, Asia. We're going to let you in. Asia. Okay, so we're going to get on with the program now that we have a full slate on our dais. I'm going to introduce Asia Smith. She's the Executive Director of Purple Rain. She's here to represent the Bessie May Women's Health Center. Welcome, Asia Smith.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Saturday and happy holidays to you all. I'm pretty sure you had a great Thanksgiving. I actually hope that you did. We all have a lot to be thankful for, no matter what we have going on. After the storm, the literal storm, but also our personal storms in our lives. I'm sure we have all, I hope we all took a moment to just reflect on all the wonderful things that we've come through and all the wonderful things that we actually look forward to. So again, my name is Asia Smith, and I'm the founder and CEO of an organization called Purple Rain. Now I know the very thing that everybody thinks about when they hear the name Purple Rain is ding ding ding. Yes, press you. But actually, the organization is inspired by a Prince song. But if I may, just take 2 minutes to just explain to you why I chose the name as Purple Rain. Now, how many of you know what the color purple actually represents? Yes, royalty, power, healing, and love. But it is also, sadly, the color that represents domestic violence. Now, I know when we think domestic violence, the first thing we say, oh, that's not me. That's not my issue. I'm not going to let anybody put their hands on me. Or I wish somebody would put their hands on me. But the reality is domestic violence affects each and every single one of us, whether it's indirectly or directly. I don't know if you guys recall a couple of years ago, there was an incident where a little baby was taken right here from East Orange and tossed into the Raritan River. Now, while I didn't know that baby, it was really sad to hear that a 3-month-old could have been thrown in the Raritan River by their own father. And so while, again, it did not affect me personally, it absolutely affected me indirectly. Now, the word RAIN, we don't spell it R-A-I-N, we spell it R-E-I-G-N, and it's an acronym for Restoration, Empowerment, Integrity, Grace, and Nobility, where you can turn your tragedies into triumph. I don't call myself a survivor, I call myself an overcomer of domestic violence because I'm so over it. However, I didn't let that affect me in any negative way, but I wanted to bring back that information, the experiences, and the education that I learned from the New Jersey Coalition and a few other places to the community. And that is why I'm here partnering with the Bessie May Women's Health Center. So again, domestic violence is not about just women. There are men who are victims of domestic violence, but sadly, 85% of the cases of domestic violence are against women. And that's why it is very appropriate for us to bring these services along with all the other services here to the Bessie May Health Women's Center. So we want to make sure that we're representing the whole woman, mind, body, spirit, both financially and, most importantly, empowering the people in our community. So now, Mayor Bowser, today, Esme Sharp, unfortunately, could not be here today. She is attending a funeral for one of her mentors and a dear friend of hers, but she asked that I read a letter to you just to let you know how grateful she is to have your support here. So it says, I would like to sincerely thank you again for attending our empowerment workshop on today, Saturday, November 21st, 2012, here at the Bessie May Women's Health Center. It is truly an honor and a privilege for you to take time out of your busy schedule to join us. Mayor Bowser, our goal is to identify leading health disparities affecting families. Our wonderful health center brand can definitely provide the kind of services to enhance and improve the quality of health care for families here in our township of East Orange. The Bessie May Women's Health Center is committed to bringing experienced medical providers and practitioners for the betterment of the community we serve, which are the uninsured, some insured, and the underserved. My heart is saddened that I am unable to present today to let you know how grateful I am for you and to welcome you at the center. I want you to know that I am wholeheartedly committed to you and the township. I am attending this funeral for a phenomenal woman who was very instrumental in helping me establish and open this wonderful health center. I will try to return before you leave, but just in case I do not arrive in time, I certainly look forward to speaking with you soon. Sincerely yours, Esme Sharp, founder, president, CEO of the Bessie Mae Women's Health Center. So again, we thank you, Mayor Bowser, for coming out, making this day special for us. We appreciate your time, especially as a mayor. I know that you have a lot of places that you have to be. So we, again, thank you for taking the time out to help us to empower the women of our community. Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to ask Mayor Bowser to come up and give his empowerment speech to us. And we ask Mayor Bowser to also stand up with us afterwards as we give the certificate of presentation to the ladies of the center. So Mayor Robert L. Bowser, would you please?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Sorry I'm a little late, but they were having a food giveaway at City Hall, which will last till 2 o'clock today. Unfortunately, it started at the same time the program started, so I had to stop by. I called my son, who works in public relations and media. He does a lot of speech writing, and he's down in New Orleans. And he survived Katrina, 3 other hurricanes. So I was asked his advice. I said, David, I have to make a little speech this morning. What do you think I should talk about? And he thought about it for a little while, and he said, why don't you talk about 10 minutes and sit down? Now, I was asked to give an overview of my bio. Now, if I talk about that, I'll be here for at least 2 hours. My family has been in the city of East Orange since 1883. I'm not that old. But you learn a lot of things. I know when you're in school and you were taking subjects that you didn't like, you would say, I'm just going to get through this and I'll never see that again. Well, you're wrong. Because you will see it somewhere, sometime. And I was also taught that everybody now is talking about computers. When I came to school, there were no computers. But the best computer you have is right here. There would not be a computer without your brain. And I've been told we only use 4% of our brain power, which means you need to study, you need to learn, and you need to apply the things that you learn. Let me just run through a little bit of my bio real quick. My family is made up of architects, engineers. I have 4 brothers, and one of them ended up being a pharmacist. Don't ask me how. Because, architecture, construction, everything was in my family background. But he was that independent because he almost blew up the house when he was a kid when my mother and father gave him a chemistry set. So they said, you better learn how to use this stuff. And for some reason, he went on and became a pharmacist. They also said, would you talk about your career? You have more than one career. And if I don't know if you're in college now or just finished school, or maybe you're still working on school, and if you set your goal to be something, it is not a straight line from high school to get to there. You may have to do other things to get through college, if you're going to college, or coming through your program and what you're doing. So you have to be prepared. When I get called to talk a lot, if I get a call from one of the schools, I will go to school before I go anywhere. because I think the children need to understand that there are many opportunities out here now that we didn't have coming up. Right. I think, am I on camera? Doesn't make any difference. I think the worst thing that happened to our people was integration. For some reason, we stopped learning how to work together, support each other. Today is supposed to be small business people. I just came up Central Avenue, and we got small businesses all along this street. And there's no folks out there that are running out to the malls because of Black Friday. Isn't that something? Right. But when I went to one of the schools, I was fortunate enough one time to be there at a school we named after Johnny Cochran. And he said one thing, even though you know about it, preparation is the name of the game. Right. You watch T.D. Jakes? Huh? I know you do. Y'all better watch something about religion. Right. He says it all the time. Get ready, get ready, get ready. Am I right?
Right.
Shaking their head back there. Okay. Well, I went to East Orange High School, and I graduated from North College of Engineering as a civil engineer. That was before NJIT. Then I went to work for the North Planning Board. Worked for the Montclair Public Works Department. Became a traffic engineer because I went back to school at Northwestern and learned about traffic engineering. And I left there, and I worked as a structural engineer for a small firm in Elizabeth. I did surveying, got licensed as a surveyor, I got licensed as a professional planner. And then I started my own business, right here, right on that corner, across the street, over the furniture company. We were there for 18 years. And we grew. And we were the largest minority firm back then, east of the Mississippi. We had 42 employees. And if you want to learn about being in business, come and talk to me sometime when you got some time. Because you think it's about just doing what you're supposed to do. When you got to make payroll every week, it gives you a whole different perspective about what business is all about. And then I became a director of public works for the city of East Orange for 5 years. And the mayor and I didn't get along, so he didn't reappoint me. So I went to work for the Board of Education in Newark in design and construction as an engineer again. But then I looked at my city and I said, we're going downhill. We got to do something about this. We got to fix it. We got to make it better for people. And I decided to run for mayor. And I won. There were 5 of us running. There were 14,000 some votes, and I won by 52 votes. So don't tell me your vote doesn't count. Right. So it's important that, one, you focus on what you want to do. I believe in setting goals, but we have a problem because some of us got too many goals at one time. We don't focus on something. I mean, look at the people who have been most successful in their life, in their career, whatever they do. Singers. They find a style and they stay with it and stay with it. And they become successful. They become household names. But the thing I always think about is people who influence you and how you develop. For instance, my godfather, 50 years old, couldn't read, couldn't write, but he could fix any electronical thing you had in your house. He would just play with it until he got it done. He taught himself how to read at 57 years old. Sometimes he would just fake it like he was reading with a magazine. Sometimes turn it upside down, didn't even know it was upside down. But he took the time, working with us in the family, and others to learn how to read. And then he taught himself how to oil paint. He used to paint animals. So I said to myself, here's somebody who doesn't have or did not have the opportunity for education and still learn something. So you got a lot of people in your life, is what I'm telling you, that will influence what you do. And a lot of it is family. I get stories about single parent, mothers, and single parent fathers. There's no such thing. Right? You didn't get here by yourself. One person didn't make it. So you may have brothers, sisters, uncles, cousins. They all contribute to you. If everything else fails in your life, you still have your family. And they will support you. My father came from a single family. Well, father left when he was 3 years old, so he was a single family. And he went on to become a lot of things. Became an architect. He became the Grand Master of Masons for the state of New Jersey. He was assemblyman. He did a lot of things. He worked for the city of East Orange. So everybody is driven by something. Now, I know there's some folks that are driven by mom and dad. They may be 30, 40 years old, still driven by mom and daddy, but they have that goal, they have that desire to be something. And I think a lot of it is you have to be able to prove your worth. What are you worth? You have to stop every once in a while and take inventory of yourself. What are you here for? What is your purpose? What is your God-given purpose on this earth? Now I'm in the political game, right? But I'm not a politician. Politics is supposed to be the means to help solve problems, not the negative thought of, oh hell, these are politicians. It ain't gonna work. No, it's supposed to be able to come together, work together, and accomplish something. And you saw the mess the other day down in Newark with Cory Booker and all that. They're trying to appoint somebody to take Donald Payne Jr.'s seat. Right. It was a mess. Because it leaned too heavily on the political side as opposed to trying to help people within that community. And it'll be fixed. There's one thing about government. Government is permanent. If I leave tomorrow, somebody will come and sit where I sit. The structure is always there. Only problem with government is usually too slow. That when you come to get something done, you get all ticked off because it's not going to happen right away. But we're there for a purpose. And in order for you to succeed, my mama told me, you better surround yourself with good people. Smarter than you are. They're going to make you look better. What you need to be is be the band leader, which means you need to know all the instruments, how the pieces fit. And when you start orchestrating, you know when to bring in the drums, you know when to bring in the saxophones, and all of those things will work well. But you also learn from them. Now, I have a saying. The only place success comes before work, particularly hard work, is in the dictionary. Y'all get that? We get confused. Everybody has an idea. One of the comedians said one time, ideas, everybody got an idea, just like everybody has a booty. Right? But with an idea, it's only an idea until you make it work. Understand what I'm saying? So again, you need to focus on what you need to do. I'm also a believer in this. If you do small things, I call it incremental success. If you do small things and you build on those, they get bigger and you become successful. You want to know why? Because people watch it. Oh, he talks a good game. You don't know what he's doing, right? But each time you do something well and you build on it, then people will say, hey, he knows what he's doing. So when it comes time to do the big thing, you have a record that says, you know, you can do this. Now, too many people really want to make it big before they know what they're here for. Because one thing is we're bombarded every day. If you look at television, we're bombarded every day with choices. Right? And I'll give you an example. Take drinking a soda, Coca-Cola. Right? If you want to drink Coca-Cola nowadays, right, they have Diet Coke, Cherry Coke, Vanilla Coke, caffeine-free Coke, caffeine-free Diet Coke. You have a lot of choice. Zero Coke. Right. Now, when I came along and you wanted to drink a Coke, you had two choices. Take it or leave it. Is that simple? But it was a simpler time. But all I'm saying is, you got a lot of clutter in what you want to do. Until you really focus on what you want to do, what you want to be, it ain't going to happen. It's not going to happen. So every once in a while, you got to stop, see where you are, see what you're doing. If it's your goal to be a nurse, work in healthcare, that's what you need to focus on. A lot of our people always want to be a jack of all trades and end up doing a little bit of everything, which means you're doing a little bit of nothing. You ask somebody, you know, how you doing? They go, oh, up and down. You know, I get by. You know, win some, lose some. Right? So come the end of the year, you don't know how to really evaluate what your year was. But if you focus and you say, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to accomplish by the end of the year, and you keep moving in that direction, you got to stop every once in a while and say, am I on the right road? Evaluate where you are. Now, the other problem, in the same vein, is that you're trying to do too much. I love hearing people talk, I'm multitasking. Right? You heard about that? That means you ain't doing nothing. Right? Sometimes you got to do more than one thing at one time. But that's not an excuse. And I love my wife, but she always says, you know, women have to keep balls up in the air all the time, you know, because you got a lot of things that you got to do. Right? But don't drop one. Because then you got a problem. Keep focused. And the one thing that I've been able to do, and I heard something you said earlier, I served on a hospital panel for a citizens advisory group for the Orange Hospital 7. And we had a group like this. We broke up into 4 people, I think, had different groups, and we said, we want to know as a hospital what services the community really needs. Right? And we want you to list in order 10 services you think the community really needs. So each group came up with their 10. They tried to match them up. Unfortunately, it was the same time when O.J. Simpson had domestic violence. So what, you know what number 1 was? Domestic violence. You know where diabetes was? Number 9. Some people were just there because they went along with the group. They weren't thinking, of what the community really needed. Right? Diabetes will kill you. And everybody thinks it's just going to go away. Right? I mean, they had heart problems, hypertension. Back then, HIV was just starting to become a big thing. But domestic violence is number one. Then you had all this other stuff. I belonged to the Lions Club, which dealt with eyesight. So when we went down to the park at one of the festivals, we brought two doctors, two senior doctors, both well in their 60s. First time I ever saw two professional men, eye doctors, cry. Because when the community came through and they did the eye exam, they found 86% of the people that they inspected, over 200 people, had some form of diabetes. 84% in this community. And what it's related to, whether it's diet, heredity, because it's in your family, you know it's going to be in you. Right? So there are things that we have to give a priority to. Don't put so many irons in the fire that the irons put the fire out. Right? Stay focused. Stay focused. And if you want to be a leader, be a leader. Nobody wants to follow anybody that doesn't know where to go. Did that make sense?
Yes.
So, I mean, I happen to belong, you mentioned Mayor Wayne Smith. I belong to the Urban Mayors Association, which is 32 of the urban cities in New Jersey, which is, by the way, 78, 79% of the total population. In 32 cities out of 566 the state of New Jersey. So we focus on problems which are mainly for us, for minorities. And we try to bring those programs back to our cities and make them work. Also belong to the U.S. Conference of Mayors. At one point I was president of the League of Municipalities, which was over the 566 municipalities. But what used to get me so mad, people forget they're there to help people. That's what we're there for. And I think that's what you're here for. If you lose that focus, you got a problem. You got a problem. Because you got to work at it. I also belong to the National Conference of Black Mayors. I know there's one thing you don't know. You know, I'm going to say, yes, we knew it. But there are 682 African American mayors in the state of New Jersey. I mean, the state of United States. Did you know that? You didn't know that? We represent over 68 million people. Not all minorities. But we've taken up, during my leadership anyway, going to Africa and working with countries in Africa. And the one thing I am the most proud of is that we've been able to exchange ideas with African countries, bringing what they do to what we do. We're not going there to say we like to say the white knight on the white horse coming in to help you. We're exchanging ideas. Do you know in Senegal, speaking about HIV/AIDS, their infection rate in Senegal is 0.7%. Right in the middle of Africa where all this stuff is supposed to be so bad, which it is. There is no city in the United States that has HIV infection rate that low. Don't you think we can learn something from that?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Huh? So we work with Nigeria, we're in the Caribbean, work in South America, but we're exchanging ideas because that's what you have to do. You have to come together and bring the best minds that you can find to do something. And I'm simplifying because there's a lot of real things you can focus on. And if you're focusing through this organization on health, you know, if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. That's what you need to pass on to people that you're going to serve. You need to provide that leadership. You need to provide that understanding. And if they're not listening, you got to find a way to make them listen. Right. I'll tell you this right now. To get people's attention, you don't have to hit them, upside the head with a 2x4. But it would help if you gave them a luncheon or a breakfast. They will show up. And then you can lay your program out for them. But you have to have the hook. You have to have the interest. If you're gonna provide the leadership, you got to find a way to get to it. And if I can ever find a way to get the parents more involved in their kids in our education system, we will all succeed.
Yes.
It was only 150 years ago when they didn't allow the slaves to read. Slow progress, yes. But we can do better. We got more opportunities right now than we ever had in life. We need to work. What did Johnny Cowper say? Preparation is the name of the game. Thank you and God bless.
Okay, well, I say that was a lot of empowerment. We have a wealth of empowerment here, as I was saying before. And when people, they ask, well, what is it that you all are doing? And what do you mean by empowerment? How are you going to empower someone? You empower someone every day when you give them a wealth of knowledge that they may not have known. So you walk away elevated mentally more than what you were before you walked in the door. So that's what the Bessie Mae Women's Health Center is about, and partnering with Elegance Plan, where we're doing the workshops. We're hitting on different topics. The topics of discussion are networking, financial education, thinking outside of the box. How many people I have, just by working in the mayor's office, they don't have proper medical insurance. They don't have life insurance. If a loved one passes away, they're really seeking support from a lot of political icons, what have you, out in the community to help to take care of their loved one that they weren't able to, because they didn't have that knowledge, or someone around them. They weren't centered around someone who kept them elevated in that way. So we also have the Beauty in You, where it not just when we talk about beauty in you, it's not just something that's on the outer part, but it's also what's inside. In all aspects, your education, whether or not you're taking care of your health, your mental health, and your self-esteem. A lot of us have gone through some things from our adolescent where our self-esteem was tarnished. In some way, it was tarnished. So beauty in you just doesn't mean your outer beauty. It's also the inner and what's upstairs, what you understand as far as loving thyself. How to manage life without stress. That was a very good session, and a lot of us are stressed, whether or not it's financial stress, whether or not it's home stress, on the job stress. Just when you walk out into the community, when you see the dynamics of what's going on out here with the violence and so forth, you just never know what a person is going through, and they're severely stressed out and don't know how to handle it, so they may resort to violence or whatever the case may be, or domestic violence, so, and then we went on to talking about career education empowerment. That was a phenomenal Saturday that we had, because we had so many people that came out and they shared their story. They shared what inspired them to develop, whether or not it's a nonprofit, or what career path they were on, how they were inspired and empowered by others. Culinary health matters. We just didn't talk about, okay, what are we going to cook because, we're just going to feast up for Thanksgiving or whatever the case may be. But it also entailed, how are you taking care of yourself? Before we can prepare a meal, we also have to know how those nutrients and what is it doing to the mind, the body, and soul. So we talked about that, and that's where we have Marie Wright from Essential Living here today with us to continue on and share some information. And then, of course, I just wanted to say I thank you again for being here. You're very instrumental in the progress of the empowerment workshops. And next I'm going to call up Marie Wright from Essential Living.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here with you, and I hope to share a little bit that you can take from here that will help in changing your life for the betterment. I'm a holistic health counselor. I just want to share a little bit about my journey through health and changing my diet. I have Essential Wellness. It's a wellness center where I teach people actually how to eat correctly. Everything the mayor was saying in terms of a lot of our problems that we have today, it extends from knowing who we are, where we have come from, what has been taken from us. So what I do, I try to help people to get back on track in terms of having a better foundation. And a better foundation starts with your health. When you have a healthy body, healthy mind, a healthy spirit, we're able to make better decisions wherever we live at. So a lot of us, and the people who we are, we're not able to rise above on a certain level because we live in a society that puts a lot of stress on us, puts us in a position and in an area where we don't have the proper foods to nourish ourselves. In our area, it's been designed most of the time to defeat us, to tear us down, not giving us the proper nutrition. So I try to do in coming together with women and men is to steer them into thinking different today. We can no longer depend on the system to take care of us. We have to start in terms of knowing who we are. First of all, knowing our history. The mayor talked about coming together with different countries over in the motherland. Where it all began at. We're very powerful people where we've been taught to be defeated, have defeated attitudes, but we have so much greatness in us. There is a way we have to go back and find out who we are. Unless we know our history, we cannot go forward anymore. The last 8 years, we have gone through a lot of transition in us as a people. We've been able to survive because we've lived on a certain level for so long. Now it's time for us not just to survive, but to live. We have a president in office that we can relate to, that we can look at it and say that we no longer have to settle for less, that we can gain more in our lives just by through education, building our bodies, mind and spirit. When you have a healthy body, you're connecting emotionally. We live in a very stressful society where in our environment, because we don't have the proper nutrients, that creates a whole imbalance in the body, which brings on a lot of the problems that we have in our environment, in our homes. Because we don't have the proper nutrients, our body is not being nutritionally balanced. And when we have that, we don't have to worry about the sickness and disease. But we do at the moment have to worry about sickness and disease because we don't have a proper diet. People say, well, been eating this way all our lives. But we've been eating in the last 50 years. They have changed the way, they have changed our food source. We live in a day where corporations who have chemical companies that are now feeding us. So when you look at it and you say drugs and food, should they be in the same room together? I don't think so. There's a company by the name of Monsanto's that someone's familiar with. What they're trying to do is to control the food industry in itself. It is a huge, it's like Pac-Man. Everything that is positive, they go and try to break it down and destroy it. And they're dealing with our food system. If we don't have the proper nutrients, we can't exist as a healthy society, as a healthy community. So I just want to share a little bit about what I do in my wellness center and helping people to change their trend of thought, to think different, to start thinking outside the box, start going in and looking at yourselves differently. The first thing to do when you're trying to get focused and go forward in your life is to be able to detox. Detox is, because we live in a very toxic society and stressful society, that plays a large part in bringing toxins into the body. And when you have toxins in the body, this is where all the disease comes from. Most of your high blood pressure, gout, arthritis. The mayor talked about diabetes. Diabetes is almost #1 disease in our neighborhood. And there's no reason why diabetes should be that way. I'm a product of my mother and my grandmother being a diabetic. My mother died of diabetes. It was a very hard thing for me to see. That was 20 years ago, which triggered me into, I don't want to go that way. I don't want to have diabetes. And I wish that I had the knowledge that I have today that would have helped my mother along the way. But my mother and my father was caught up in the American tradition of the medical way of treating everything. But they don't always have the answer. We have to take the power into our own hands and not rely on the chemical industry that they have us on today. If we just go back and doing basic things as detoxing our body from toxins, and then after that, rebuilding the body with the proper nutrients. Excuse me. Detoxing is cleansing the body, cleansing on a cellular level, just not getting rid of the surface cleansing. When you detox on a cellular level, you're replenishing the body. You're giving the body what it needs. You're giving the body oxygen. Oxygen is what reconstructs the whole body in terms of your cells. And disease cannot live in an oxygenated body. So when you're lack of oxygen, all the different diseases come about. That diabetes that I was talking about, that is #1. But we want to learn how to correct that. We want to learn how to, so how many in this room has somebody in their family that has diabetes? Quite a few. Quite a few. And also the medical industry would like us to think that most African American people have diabetes. And a lot of times we don't. But we take their word for it because we don't know where else to go to. We don't have that information. But if we just learn how to stop, think, and first say, how do I start? How do I get back on track? I've detoxed, now where do I go from there? It's about putting real food in your body and staying away from the fast food. The fast food is chemicals. The body does not know what to do when chemicals are in the body. So in our neighborhoods, instead of having supermarkets that have organic food, farm grown food, We have all of these genetic engineered foods. What are genetic engineered foods? Those are foods that have been modified by Monsanto's and some of the other chemical companies. Our body recognizes real food. If anybody has family down south that has done their own farming over a period of time, I grew up in New York City. Every summer we would go down south to my grandmother's house in Edenton, North Carolina. When we got down there, we were city kids. When we got down there, we kicked our shoes off. First thing we did was ran into the field. And in the field, we knew there was fresh watermelons in there. We would take a watermelon out, go on my grandmother's porch, bust it open, and take the heart out and start eating it. It was so good, so good. And you could taste the difference than the foods that we're eating today. On my grandmother's farm, she had cows, she had pigs, she had chickens. When we ate down there, we ate fresh chicken from the yard that she would wring their necks and we would have it for dinner. She raised geese that she sold to other people. Back then what they did, they didn't go to the supermarket. They exchanged from family to family. Whatever your family had, we would do in exchange from there. We had a field full of all different types of greens and fruits. Everything was on it. It was self-sustaining. But we've gotten away from that. What the mayor was saying in terms of segregation was probably the worst thing that we could have ever had done to us, is because it allowed us to go into a mainstream that was not for the betterment of our people. Had we stayed in raising our own vegetables and having our own farms, we would be a better, healthier people today. But because of that, and we're not, and we're put in a situation where we have to change our diets, and so it's getting educated and knowing where to go. Is there a farmer's market that comes in the area here?
Yeah, they have some.
They do have some?
Yeah, they have them. Yeah, they
Okay.
announce them.
How many people are aware of the farmer's market in the area? Okay, a few. And that's where you begin at. You try to find the resources of what is around you. What is around you that's not processed, and begin to shop there. When you go to your supermarkets, you want to look for foods that you want to stay on the outer perimeter of the supermarket, because everything up and down the aisle has a chemical base in some sort of way. So I look at it, the life force is on the outside, and inside is death. When you look at it, death and sickness.
They put more whole foods in them too. The whole food stores, like some of them, to bring you more organic.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You have to look outside, out on the outer perimeter of your supermarkets, and I'm glad to see that they are putting more organic foods there. But then there has been a question about what is organic. Is it really organic? There's a lot of stuff that we have not told, and as far as our food source and where it's coming from and how they label it. That's a big thing, how they label it. Now they're saying that they want control of the organic foods. So they want control of everything that we eat. So we got to be a step closer and a step in front, saying, well, okay, if they say organic foods, there's something wrong with that. What I do is I teach people not to rely on just what they're seeing, but to measure the energy of food. And there is a way that that can be done, so that you know within yourself that you're eating the proper foods. When you're purchasing foods that are healthy, then you don't want to overcook your food. That's what we do a lot. Also is because we don't know how to prepare our foods properly. And that's something that I show people also at the center in terms of coming from the traditional diet more into a healthy diet, more into a live force diet. Why do we go from tradition into a basic diet into more raw food diet? That's because you want to get more of the phytonutrients that's in the foods in itself. So what are those things? The greens that we eat. The greens bring about life force. That's our energy source. That's what's going to make us alive That's what's going to give us the energy. That's what's going to give us the energy for our cells, for our brain, for every part of our bodies to be healthy. So when we have collard greens, when we have kale, when we have all of your greens, you're getting the phytonutrients. And we're not cooking it down anymore with ham hocks and turkey and all of that. There's no need to. We can put other things to support collard greens and kale and Swiss chard and Napa cabbage, just by putting red peppers in, just by putting onions in, and putting garlic in. These things are supporting our health system. So we got to get away from the fast food places. We have to get away from overcooking our food. And when we begin to just get away, if you not eat fast food for at least a week, your body's going to notice a difference, because it knows that it's not getting those chemicals that are in the food. And if you replace it with live food, if you replace it with food that is food again, because we haven't been eating food. We've been eating food, drugs masqueraded as food. So when we know what we're eating, the body is going to wake you up, it's going to energize you, you're going to become healthy, and you're not going to have those diseases that we find in our neighborhood. There's something else that, in looking at it, is chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is part of your blood. It's like your bloodstream when it's toxic. When you're eating the greens, you're actually adding more chlorophyll, which is cleansing that blood and giving you the oxygen and helping you to break down the food. Now, most people that I come in contact with, they may have a bowel movement one time a day, once a week, once every 2 weeks. That in itself, again, brings about sickness and disease in the body, because food is made to give us fuel. And with the fuel, it's just like you run your car. You go to the gas station, you get your gas, you run the car, the gas goes out, and you have to, each time you have to refill it. Our bodies are the same way. So we eat, for every meal that we eat, we should eliminate one before we eat the next meal. But if you're not eliminating, you have that breakfast, you have that lunch, and you have that dinner in your system, and you have not eliminated, that's where the tiredness comes from. That's where disease sits all along the colon. The colon is 25 feet long. So if you haven't eliminated, you're just continuously collecting food, and it's dragging you down. The tired you are, the more toxic you are, and you find that you have not eliminated. But when you do add the chlorophyll, what's happening, it's like a roto-rooter. The body receives all the nourishment from it. It absorbs into the cells. The cell says, wow, I like this. And you feel a difference. You feel more energized. You feel more alive. And then what happens is that the waste is released. So it's in one way and out the other way. And that's very important that we eliminate. Because when we eliminate, we don't have to worry about the arthritis. We don't have to worry about the diabetes. We don't have to worry about heart disease. All these different diseases that are about, we didn't have it 50 years ago. Because we ate food that was actually food. Today we have it because we're eating foods that are chemically based. So I challenge everyone to go and just start reading labels. You know, read what you're eating, about to eat. You know, look at the foods and ask people, those labels that they have on there, whether it's 3 series or 4 series, 5, 7, well, all of those mean something. We don't know what they mean. The average person in the supermarket, they don't know what they mean. But a 9 is organic, and that's where you want to be. A 3 is the lowest on the scale. They just had a meeting, the food industry, because there's been a fight. People want to know, especially people out in California and other places, they want to know what kind of foods they're eating if they're eating genetic engineered food. They just passed the law that they don't have to tell us. Wouldn't you like to know if you were eating genetic engineered food? Sure. And that's a big problem there. So that's why I say also shop locally. If you know that your farmer's market meets on a Thursday or a Saturday or Monday, whatever it is, we are worth being healthy. We are worth taking that time, and the time that we're wasting doing something else is to take that time, and you find you have more energy. The more energy you have, what I do is I say, you know, on Thursday I'm going to go down to the farmer's market. So there are herbs if you have upset stomach that's going to cure that upset stomach and help it to calm down. If you're stressed out, there are herbs to take that you don't have to be stressed out. If you have high blood pressure, things that they tell us to stay away from that we've grown up on, that our grandmothers used to give us when we were younger. We got to go back to those things. Alkaline in the body is another thing. Our bodies are very, very acidic. And when the body is acidic, again, it brings about disease. So disease cannot live in an alkaline body. So how do we get that body alkaline? By drinking water. Not the water that's in your supermarkets. We want to look for alkaline water. We want to invest, whether it's one person or 4 people have to do it or 8 people have to do it, to buy an alkaline machine. And what this does, it takes the impurities out of the water and it alkalines the water so that when you drink it, all of those diseases that we were talking about a few minutes ago, what happens is that it allows the body to add oxygen, again, flush the system so that you don't have that. You don't have the pain. You don't have the arthritis. Uric acid is sitting in that joint. What are they doing if you have too bad of an arthritis? They're replacing. We're going to have biotic bodies, you know, in the future. There's no need for that. When we have pain in our hips, when we have pains in our feet, legs and everything, most of the time it's because the content of meat that we eat. We eat a large amount of meat. Where's our meat coming from? It's not coming from the pasture anymore. It's actually coming from, they're not farm raised, they're actually coming from factories. That these cattle and chickens, if I show movies on actually where these animals are being housed at. They're not grazing out there, they're on cement floors. And they're also being fed other carcasses that have died. There's a company, when one of these animals die, someone will come and pick it up, take it to another factory, dehydrate it, break it down into food, and then bring it back to the same farmer or the warehouse that these animals have come from. As long as they are alive before they get on the truck to go to the market, they're edible. Isn't that horrible? Knowing that this is what we're eating. I hate to make it so graphic, but I want you all to get it and make some change, because we are at a time where we need to save our lives. We need to save who we are to go forth, because no one else cares. So we have to care about ourselves. And if we have to do it 2 at a time or 3 at a time, we say that we don't have time to cook anymore. So let's say you get a group together. You have a group here. You can start a dinner maybe twice a week. 2 or 3 people can prepare food so that everybody eats one meal and you share it. We have to get back to that. It's no more doing it separately. We have to come together and feed ourselves to save ourselves in the future. Minerals, that's very lacking in our body also, that we don't get the proper minerals. That's why women, when they get to a certain age and they have osteoporosis and also hot flashes, because we're not getting a balanced nutritional, we don't have a balanced nutritional diet. And we begin to take, again, out the chemicals that we're eating from the fast food places or places that are not so fast food, but they still have foods that have been processed and brought into the restaurants. So we begin to, instead of having coffee in the morning, have herbal teas, have smoothies that have your greens in it, that has a banana. This morning, before I came, I had a green smoothie. There was spinach in my green smoothie. There was a green protein drink. Also ginger, lemon which is alkaline in the body, ginger which is stimulating the system, spinach which is giving the body phytonutrients, banana potassium, apple. You know, all of these things, vitamin C, to start your day off with balance. Not eggs, not bacon, not toast, not all of these dead foods that are devitalized. They're not doing anything for us. So we have to begin to say, well, you know something? I want to try something else. I did bring some drinks. Charlene told me there was less people, so I have less, but you're welcome to it. What I do is I do a lot of expos, and I do a lot of festivals, and I do festivals for the other people. They eat it up because they know. I have lines and lines of people waiting for me to feed them because they know about the foods that I eat. And every time I do it in certain places, there is such a line. Oh, I'm so glad to see you back. Oh, I just love your food. It brings me to tears sometimes that I don't see my people online eating this food. Because they know if I'm doing an affair for 2 days or 3 days or 5 days, and they come to me and say, you know, my back was hurting, you know, it doesn't hurt anymore. You know, I had headaches. I don't have headaches anymore. All I'm doing is feeding them. All I'm doing is nourishing them, helping to cleanse them, helping to build them. And they know the value. We have to begin to know the value. And when we know the value, we can be changed. We can start building our own communities. All of this goes hand in hand. Building our own communities is knowing what to do. Nourishing the young one that's sitting there from that point. Instead of giving him cow's milk, we got to start giving him the greens to start building his system up. Cows, after they're born, and the calves and everything at a certain point, they don't drink the milk. Why are we as humans drinking the milk? Because the milk is full of pus. We didn't know that. There's pus in there, which is creating mucus in the body. When we have all of that mucus in the body, that suppresses the immune system. And that's where they want us. That's why we see all the commercials on the smiley faces with the nuke and everything. We have to shut down what we see. And we have to awaken the inside. And we have to go to God and ask God for directions. Our churches have to direct us more in a way of becoming more spiritually aware. And when we are spiritually aware, we're able to make better decisions on what we're doing for ourselves, in our lives, in our community. Because in the future, for us to be here, it's about nutrition. It's about wanting to share and come together as a community. The community is no longer just in my four corners. The community is the country. If you have family in Atlanta, and you go down there to visit them, bring some stuff that they didn't know about. They'll be like, girl, what's this? How do you fix this? And even though it's foreign to them, the body will let them know, you know, I really like this. This is really good. And I feel the difference. And later on that night, they'll be like, girl, I didn't go to the bathroom for 3 days. You know, I had a bowel movement. The body will let you know itself just by changing your diet. So I just want to impart that. There's so much that I can talk about. I know we don't have the time, but this is what I teach people. Because I just want to say this also. I had sickness. I had sickness when I was growing up. Always had a cold. I had cramps in my stomach. I had fibroids. Was able to get rid of the fibroids by just changing my diet and not having surgery. They always want to cut on us. We don't need to be cut on. We just need to change our way of eating. And when we do that, we bring the life force into ourselves. And we connect emotionally. We won't have that violence that we have in our neighborhood. We won't allow the other people to treat us beneath because we are great people. In the last 3 years, I had a chance to go to Egypt, and I also came back this summer from Ghana. We are rich people. We have to rise above all of what we see and reach for higher things and know that we can do it. Has anybody seen Black Girl Rocks?
Yes.
It was just on.
Yes.
We all rock,
Yes.
and we need to tell each other. We need to tell each other that we do rock and that we can do it. The difference between us and other people is that they're being nourished on a different level. They're being nourished mentally, physically, and I won't say spiritually. Okay? But on those two levels, they're being nourished so that they know and they have access to it. So unless we come together, we're not going to have it. So we have to come together on that. I want to thank you for inviting me, and I hope I
Okay. That was definitely awesome. Again, the topics that I chose to be a part of the curriculum is because those are the things that are interest to me, but I felt like I could empower others and make it of interest to you. Sometimes, unfortunately, the culture that we're in, the Western society, we tend to look at the other persuasion as being so right. So, like as she was saying, the things that we have in the grocery stores, the commercials that we see, it's all designed so that we could, it's almost like a brainwashing. Sometimes our ancestors, they never really cared for us to watch TV. We mostly did things at the table, dining at the table, eating amongst one another as family, and talking, and how was your day, and encouraging us to read more, and we need to listen to more documentaries about ourselves, because when we turn on things from the media, most of the times those things are negative. When we look at the commercial, most times those are subliminal seductions. So we have to really, as Marie was saying, and as Mayor Bowser said, our health is our wealth, and without our health, we have nothing. We wouldn't be here today. We wouldn't continue to come and be empowered amongst one another and share and partake in a bartering system, as she was saying, it's a give and take and coming together and breaking bread together. But we have to do right by ourselves. And with the workshop, although some people economically, you may not be able to afford it, but if you look at the way that you are living your lives, it's $35 for the workshop, which breaks down to $5 per Saturday. So, but most people, I got different reactions to it, and as I looked at it and said, well, what are you going to eat for dinner today? Did you go shopping for the week? Buy lots of produce, buy lots of good things, or are you going to go to the corner store, bodega, or the fast food restaurant? 9 times out of 10, you're going to spend more than $5. So when you really go out and spread the word and talk about the Bessie Mae Women's Health Center and talk about Elegance Plan, the things that Charlene is doing to share and empower others, and let them know that it's good food that we're serving here, because knowledge is power. And without great knowledge, you're not going to be able to be powerful, out here in this society today. Because most time they really want us to be suppressed. So, that's my goal, and that's why I'm driven by many others. There's a whole host of people here in the room that are doing great things. So next I'm going to call Mr. Herb Glenn from We Care Partners.
Good afternoon to everyone. I am honored to be invited back once again to make a presentation to each one of you. You know, it's really intimidating because, you know, I look at the paperwork and this is a empowering women event, and, you know, that is in itself an oxymoron for me to be here to empower women. And it is also an inspiration because there aren't many men who would even want to challenge this opportunity. But because of the relationships that I've built with many of you that are in here, I feel very blessed, not only to the extent of sharing what has been able as a male for me to feel that what is important for our community is to develop strong partnerships, but to deal with it not from just a perspective of gender, but in relationship to what we have to do as a people, and to really involve that relationship to the extent of knowing how important it is, especially when you are involved with people who have birthed nations. You know, women, I don't have that capacity. I can't do that. And it is a special pride, a special dignity that I have in relationship to honoring women, just for that responsibility that you have. You know, women are God's greatest gift to the man. And so therefore, it is my responsibility to be part of such a very important forum. I'm also honored and blessed to be here in the presence of the esteemed Mayor Bowser. You know, it's amazing how we marvel at individuals that we see every day. We you know, if we can talk with you and touch you, then it doesn't appear to seem so much of a celebrity, to say the least. You know, I'm the developer of talk shows. I have 3 talk shows that I air in Newark, and I manage the cable network for the mayor of Irvington, and I'm certainly looking at an opportunity that I can work with Mayor Bowser on. And through Mayor Smith, I've been at the opportunity of many events that has brought on forums with Mayor Bowser and others, and have now had an opportunity to form a partnership with the urban mayors in relationship to doing what my program has been developed to do. We Care Partners is a program that basically was put together to develop initiatives that will help to improve quality of life and transform communities into safe, healthy neighborhoods. And what we do is provide community relations involving multimedia and trending technology services. We are committed to the vision toward helping to create safe neighborhoods by initiating methods that will unify cultures and create alternatives for the success of our future generation. It took a while for me to even think about what that meant, because as you know, Mayor Bowser was saying, when you really are wanting to use your passion to help others, you're all over the place. You know, you really can't define what it is that you want to do. Programs and events like these help, because one of the things that's so important in relationship to getting involved in the community services, and you know, I have been involved in the politics, and I think one of the things that really changed my definition of how I wanted to spend the rest of my life and time was that it really, in most cases, defined that you have to be involved in a specific area. You know, you really have to put a lot of effort into making decisions that have an impact on the lives of others. In community services, you really don't have that responsibility. So the definition changes. But it gives you a lot more leverage to do things that aren't so critical towards you being able to make, I would say, definition of why you're doing certain things. It's already defined. And based upon that practice, I began to build better relationships. I didn't have to worry about whether or not people cared whether I was a Democrat or a Republican. It was about what it is that I'm doing that made the most obvious sense. And one of the things that I wanted to do was to be involved in the volunteerism, motivating people. Volunteerism don't necessarily mean that you're doing something for nothing, or that there is a free act of service. In most cases, volunteerism is learning, okay? And you are gaining skills from that practice. It's interesting as far as this is a volunteer effort what we're doing today, and it's really great that Charlene defined the relationship of the investment that we're making. You think of it as $35 and oh wow, but if you break it down to the amount of time and what you've been exposed to mayors and people who lead in the community, and you are learning so much on how to bring value to dealing with ways in which you can find success, then those are things that in most cases people who are successful continue to make those investments, but they make those investments because they can afford it. They can give $100, they can give $200, they can make a $500 donation towards having an opportunity to be made aware of issues with presentations from others that are successful. So as Mayor Bowser has said, start small and build yourself up to another level. This is the foundation of growing to being empowered, because those are the enlightening methods that has brought about all the levels of success in any kind of practice that we all want to be a part of. The financial capacity that really makes it evident in our ability to get to those levels is basically understanding what limitations that we have and using our creativity to meet those goals. Okay? If you can't afford to have an event, let's say at the Robin Tree, but your church is going to allow you to have it, then have it at your church. Don't worry about whether or not it's what everybody wants to be. The appeal of it. Look, this is not the largest forum to be having an event in, but we're having this event because it's important to make the effort to show that we're consistent about what it is that we do. Consistency is doing the work that deserves to be challenged without hesitation. Don't let the reality of the norm put you in a position that you feel that your reality can't be norm. You understand what I'm saying? Because we have those efforts of creativity that seems to show that we have to be larger than life in order to be famous. It doesn't work like that. When I started my relationship of doing talk and airing conversations about things that I felt was important, I knew that there were a number of individuals that were doing it. And I took something unique, just like this little camera you see in the corner here. Inconspicuous, don't nobody really, I have one, and it looks like I'm Eyewitness News. But this little thing right here, I air this on my show. And I made it clear that it doesn't take the world of capacity to say that you can't be successful in getting your point across. You don't have to have the latest and the greatest technology in order to communicate with your friends. You can either do it through text nowadays on your cell phone. You could do it through Facebook. I honestly didn't know that I was presenting today until I looked at my Facebook page. And Sydney, the woman that's here doing the video, said Herb Glenn is going to be with Mayor Bowser. I'm like, I better get up and get out of here. I was here before everybody today. I said, well, I'm going to be here today. But that's the thing that really has made our lifestyles now. When I was growing up, we wrote things in a little slang book and sent it around to each class. Now, we get on the internet and it gets so relevant to most people that it is the most important way of communicating. Young folk have this really incredible instinct. And the reason why they have this really incredible instinct, because we're not young anymore. We did it, but we didn't even have the knowledge of knowing where we were at that time, because now we're here observing them. And what is critical about it is that they're observing us. And as they observe us, it is really important that we put the kind of character that's in relative to what it is that they want to see. I'm an artist. I love color. Why would I wear an emerald green shirt with a gold jacket? Because it's colorful. And it matches. That's what elegance is about. Bringing out the life in people. We don't need to walk around and think that wearing all black is a demonstration of power. It isn't. We have to be more aware of what it is that really generates a way in which people can become instinctively charged at you. You want people to know that you're there. The process is so important for us to be able to develop in knowing what it takes to meet our goals. And personality is one of them. It is so important. When we talked about this situation, I'm sure a lot of people have been able to notice what really went on in Newark the other day. And it's amazing because I just happened to be there. And Newark, they videotape all of their presentations, their meetings. And it just so happens something uniquely different happened there. The members of the city council who didn't feel comfortable about what's going on actually got up off the dais, walked to the front of the room, and started doing exactly what they say they're not very comfortable with. They started yelling at their colleagues. I went over to my bag and I pulled out my camera, and I stood there and I said, this is history. This is new. This is unheard of. It's unprecedented. And I think I need to have this. And I probably is the only one now that has actually put it up on YouTube that shows some real presentation about what went on with that process. But the reality behind it is that it is evident of just how we can now see what went on even if we're not there. And what happens is that we now form opinions, and most people already have biases, and the relationship of what I'm making a clear definition of is just as the mayor said, that choices are abundant. We have an opportunity to make a number of different choices. And those choices really have to reflect you. You have to do you. And when you do you, then that identity will become part of the foundation that's going to help you grow. And how you do you is from who you spend your time with. If you're going to spend your time with individuals who are intelligent, then chances are you're going to be intelligent. If you want to spend your time with individuals who involve themselves in economics by processing their time in cultures that represent undocumented commerce, everybody know what I mean by that, right?
Yeah.
What I'm talking about. You know, we got to make a little money. Everybody like a little untable action. You know, but what's relevant about that is that after a while, it gets to a point that they are practices that will become evidently unnecessary for you to be able to reach your goals. What goes on in the dark? What's gonna happen? Those are, come on, where the Christians at? Where the Christians at? Where the Christians at? You think you want to be a player? You think you can play it? You think you can do what you want to? You can do Jay-Z it. You know, sell it out the back of the seat of the car, and then one day you can buy a ball club. You think it's really gonna work like that? No, it's not happening. It's not happening. Those are like just freak accidents, if you ask me. Because if we are really going to be true to what it is that we're doing, we're gonna have to do it together. And so that's why I'm very fortunate and happy about the Bessie Mae Women's Health Center, which my relationship and networking with Charlene and her program, Elegance, has invited me to be actively involved with. We want to initiate many of the things in dealing with what's happening, especially with today. Preparedness is so important. How many of us were prepared for the storm? Come on now. All right? I mean, like, listen, how long did they tell us that storm was coming? How long did they tell us that storm was coming? All right? We had no reason not to be prepared. Thankfully, my wife went out and bought every candle she can get. Honestly. Fortunately, no trees fell on my roof or windows were broken. But there were some people who experienced that. And many of them are not on public assistance. We didn't know that the problem with individuals who are on public assistance not getting their checks was not based on the fact that the storm came. It was because, I gotta tell you honestly, because I ran for county executive, they didn't put the paperwork in early. They weren't prepared. Government being prepared is so important. you being prepared is so important. Now here's another situation, and I'm going to sit down. Monday, the Department of Human Services, as I handed out the flyer, will be implementing the Disaster Food Assistance Program called DSNAP. And everyone knows the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program is the program that people who are on public assistance receive. And those people who are on public assistance have received some sort of supplemental income in relationship to helping them in relationship to getting over the disaster recovery. As Mayor Bowser was just sharing with us earlier, his township and others are doing food programs and doing whatever we can to try to remedy the situation with people in their lifestyles, and particularly families. And we were all encouraged. I was working in Newark and going around to the senior citizen centers because most of the community high-rises were really affected very, very severely. In Irvington, as we were talking, Charlene and I were talking about how the facilities there, when it came down to our elderly and our disabled people in our communities, were looking for ways to communicate to individuals, and we all blame Mayor Bowser. I called him and he didn't get back to me. But what we didn't know was that as a first responder, there had to be priorities. And some of those priorities became overwhelming. And they couldn't be able to identify all the priorities. And I took that. And instead of what we do in We Care Partners, we don't take the negative and capitalize on it. We say, what are the solutions? What do we need to do to satisfy the relationship? And I began to study and get involved with the Office of Emergency Management, and they have programs for community people to get involved with. The whole community program is one that we stepped up to being able to be a part of, and the whole community program that we have initiated and wanting to develop volunteers, educate people, having forums to talk about what's relevant and what's important, and what we need to do when the first responder can't do anything is to have a network that we can all identify to and get information, because communication is so key. And so we started a program called the Strategic Preparedness Intelligence Developmental Resiliency Network. And I named it that because I didn't want everybody to be worried about what the name was, because the acronym is SpiderNet. And then they can catch on to SpiderNet and focus on what we can begin to do, not only in the event of an emergency, but what we're doing today. We can create our network relationships, educating people about emergency and preparedness and what mitigation is, and how do we motivate people to volunteer in a crisis situation, but also in a situation where we can be able to build relationships among each other. And this unique way of developing those opportunities is part of an extended relationship that our program, We Care Partners, has created, called the Responsible Citizenship Initiative. And responsible citizenship is so important because as we continue to talk about we need a village to raise our children, well, then I think we need to talk about why our children aren't being raised. Because we are not building villages. And in the relationship of building villages, we have to look at it from what today is the extended village, which is a community. And our effort is to help build communities that will be safe and healthy. And we have developed ways in which we have workshops, where we have people from the capacity of talking about health and wellness. We've done fundraising efforts where we have honored people who are involved with developing things. We have been supportive to our government in regard to helping them initiate ideas that are going to be important for our families and people in our community to learn. And we certainly are happy about the effort that we are now able to provide for the Bessie May Women's Health Center, working with the Elegance and working with how can I get her name is no, not Esney Sharp. Yeah, Esney Sharp, but we're working with Purple Rain, Asia Smith, because Asia was working with us early on, and with Darlene, determined to achieve parent programming, and others. Here we have C, and then we might as well go ahead and just find a way to name everybody. But it is, you know, I'm getting stuck, and I have felt really happy about the idea of the fact. But I just want to just say this one thing. Mayor Bowser said government is permanent. America, I love America. America is going to be here. This is the country that we live in. This is the country we should all be proud of. This is the country we should support. And only in America can we see the ability to have someone to get elected as an African American and not use being an African American as a reason why he got elected. He got elected because he had a passion, he had the skill, and he had the determination to do God's will. And as long as you have the passion and determination to do God's will, nothing will ever stop you. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm going to have Marie come up from Essential Living and just briefly share something with you, and then afterwards we're going to do the certificate presentation.
I just left off something that I think that's very important. I had a chance to watch a DVD this weekend on Thanksgiving Day. It was called Hidden Colors. And it shows the influence of Black people throughout the time. It is very, very powerful. It is worth looking on the internet, purchasing it. When you get it, share it with everyone that you see. Let every child see it, every adult see it, every teenage see it. This is how we begin to change the way that we see ourselves. It talks about the empowerment of Black people from the beginning of time and how we have influenced every other nationality and country in the world, our influence, and what has been taken away from us. And this is why they keep their foot on our necks to keep us on a lower level. So I think if people just get that DVD, even though I knew a lot of it, it still widened my horizon of knowing more about, and it brings it all the way up to where we are now. So I just wanted to mention that to you.
Thank you. Okay. I had the pleasure of watching the movie also, Hidden Colors, this weekend. It is, as they would say, if you travel to Africa, you come back with a whole different perspective. That DVD is a documentary, and it really is informative. It's educational, things that you probably didn't know, some of the terminologies that they use now, they reflect back to our ancestors. So it's powerful. Mayor Bowser, would you please come up and help us to do this presentation? Dolores Calloway, would you please come up? Dolores! Dolores. She's not shy. The Bessie Mae and Elegance Planning presents Certificate of Empowerment to Ms. Dolores Calloway, Saturday, November 24th, 2012, by Ms. Charlene Messer, Elegance Plan, and Leslie Sharp, founder of Bessie Mae Women's Health Center. We appreciate you coming out to support us, and we ask for your continued support. Next, we're going to call up Miss Akila Frank. Would you please come up? Again, this certificate is presented to Miss Akila Frank on Saturday, November the 24th, 2012. We thank you so much for your support and your diligence with coming out, volunteering. Akila has even been coming to the center to volunteer, helping out the Women's Health Center, and we greatly appreciate you. And this is presented to you. Thank you. The next one is Miss Cynthia O'Neill. Cynthia, thank you so much for coming out, being a part of the Besame Women's Health Center program, and we'd like to present this certificate to you. Miss Betty Wade.
All right, Betty.
Betty, thank you so much. You've been an inspiration. You've been a support staff to me. Betty and I, we worked together at the township, and she was very informative. She gave me great ideas when we shared things together, and she facilitated a group of women to come into the center, and I greatly appreciate you. Thank you so much. Next we have Miss Kim Wade. Kim, thank you so much for coming out, supporting me, supporting Besame Women's Health Center. We want to present the certificate to you on November the 24th, 2012. Thank you for coming out with me. And thank you so much for coming out. We have refreshments in the back, in the conference room, and everyone is welcome to relax and just join in.